Today we're blessed to hear from Jed Anderson, who is the co-founder, owner, president, and CEO of Progress Manufacturing. Progress Manufacturing focuses on building durable goods for the RV industry. Their headline product is the Cadillac of the hitch industry for large, high-end RVs. Jed's first entrepreneurial venture started when he was 13 years old. He started a candy supply company while in grade. A few business ventures later, and after finishing college, he took on a turnaround project that he and his partners eventually purchased. They've grown it from about $250,000 to a valuation of close to $5 million. Mr. Anderson graduated from Utah State University with a double BS degree in business and agriculture, and then he came to BYU, where he completed an executive MBA program. Jed and his wife currently live in Linden, Utah, with their 3 sons. And as a small token of the gratitude for the from the Center of Entrepreneurship for you taking your time, we'd like to give you this gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, is the microphone warmed up yet? Can you hear me? You can hear me. Can anybody else hear me? No? They got me all wired up. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear it now?
Can you hear me now? I don't know if that's good or bad. Might be easier to sleep if you don't have me talking to you the whole time. Let's see. This is going to be a really long presentation because if I'm correct, yeah, there we go. How's that? Let's see if we can get ourselves back on the beginning here. Now, I'm not a real PowerPoint guru, so let's see. There we go. Okay, there's a funny something in the background on the slide on the screen there. It looks like a shelf with food storage on it, but it doesn't show up here, so I guess we're okay. All right, let's start out a little bit by maybe telling you a little more about me. Nathan introduced me from my bio. I know that I'm probably the most technologically oriented business that you've come here to see. I'm in manufacturing. It's maybe not as glamorous as some of you or some of the other presenters who present to you on this series. But it's still, in my opinion, it's very interesting. But I like it. I like machinery. I like equipment. I like making things. I like turning raw material into something more usable that you can use and you can make something better out of it. Let's go back a little bit more. I was actually born and raised in Linden, Utah. Who knows where Linden, Utah is? Wow, good. Who is from Linden, Utah? That's less than we had last time. 2 people in the last class were from Linden, but I didn't recognize them. When I grew up in Linden, it was a very, very small town. It goes all the way from the mountains down to Utah Lake. It's a very narrow, long town. I grew up on what would be considered the wrong side of the tracks, or the west side of the tracks in Linden at the time. At that time, I live on the west side of Geneva Road. Do y'all know where Geneva Road is? Okay. There's railroad tracks that took the trains into Geneva, and half the time we couldn't get to our house because there was a train parked across the road, our dead-end street. I grew up on Route 1, Box 1. That was my address, Anderson Lane. And I'm Jed Anderson, in case you didn't make that tie. My grandparents and my family lived there. Big town, so I grew up with a lot of people around me. I actually thought, hey, I want to go see the world. I'm going to get done with school. I got a tuition, or a scholarship, I should say, up to Utah State to study agriculture. So I went up there, thought, I'm gonna graduate from here. I ended up in business because I liked that a lot. I'm going to go see the world. And lo and behold, the Lord somehow sends you where He knows is best for you. And He brought me right back to Linden. And of all things, I did not grow up thinking, when I get old, I want to make trailer hitches. But here I am making trailer hitches, and it's a wonderful thing, and I enjoy it very much. And it's been a very rewarding career. In 1994, I came on with a company named Linden Hitch. So I have a lot of ties to this Linden town, if you can't tell by now. So started at Linden Hitch, and we were manufacturing trailer hitches. There were 3 employees. Well, there were 2. I became the 3rd employee. We were really 3.5 at that time. how you have a half employee is you have a high school kid that comes down. And in the facility we were in, we had a 20-foot wide swath, 60 feet long, in a much larger facility owned by somebody else. So we do all of our manufacturing in an area probably about this big. And we would finish manufacturing. We would take the product across the dirt road between the facility and the chicken coop. And there we had a painting system, and we would paint and we'd box the hitch there in that facility. I also was the guy who was the delivery boy at the time. So I would deliver hitches to the RV dealerships up in Salt Lake that would buy. So I did it all. We had a lot of fun in those days. We grew the company, and over the course of time came to a point where some of the guys that I had hired through time, we got together and we said, hey, we want to step out on our own, start a new company, and we bought that company from the people who owned it. And so hence that's how Progress Manufacturing got started. And still our main products are trailer hitches. So that's a little bit about me. I have 3 sons. I think, did he mention that? My wife is from Linden, Utah. Boy, I just can't get out of that place, right? But actually, it's great to live there now. It's changed completely. Those of you who know the town now, it's just part of Orem and Pleasant Grove, and it's a wonderful place to live. And I have a lot of good people that live around me. One thing I've found in my life is that there are a really, really lot of good people in this world. And you need to treat them the best you can, and you need to be a good person who interacts well with the people you associate with. And I learned some of that in an interesting way. He mentioned my first business. Does anybody remember what my first business was? I should have brought candy to give to you. Candy salesman. I was a candy salesman. Now, that was my first introduction to business. I had a going business. Now, typically, how do you make money in business? You see an opportunity, you see a void in the market, and you fill it, right? Well, in this case, in our junior high school, there were no candy machines. I equate that. They did not allow candy machines, and it was kind of against the rules to have candy. So I saw a need, because there's a few hundred kids who all want candy, yet there's no supply for candy. So I made my first mistake, and I went against the rules, right? I didn't do what I should. I learned in an interesting way that you should not go against the rules. So here's how my candy business went. That was in the early 80s. Yes, I'm that old. I know I don't look it, but no, okay. So early 80s, and that was when the Sony Walkman came out. Now, since that time, we've gone through the Sony Walkman, the Discman, and now the iPod, right? So the Walkman came out, and suddenly everybody who manufactured apparel realized there's this little thing that's basically a radio with headphones, but the kids have nowhere to shove this thing. So they made coats, and they were big, puffy coats, and they put pockets inside them on both sides. So you could put your Walkman in it, you could put your headphones in there. So everyone else in school carried their Walkman around. Now, I grew up on a farm. I was a dairy farm. We milked cows. We didn't have a lot of extra cash, and my parents didn't buy stuff like that. So I filled my pockets with candy, and I sold it to everybody else. So I was the guy that said, hey, kid, you want to buy some candy? That was me. And my inventory, it was a great situation. They provided me a location for my inventory. I had a locker in the hall. They gave me a locker in the gymnasium. So they gave me 2 warehouses I didn't have to pay rent on. And so I filled them up with candy, and I was a candy salesman. And everybody knew me. And at first, marketing was a little tough because you can't, it's not like you can post big billboards around or even notice. If you need now and laters, you can buy them from Jed. You don't do that because then Jed would get caught. And so after a few months, the business was going pretty well. I had candy everywhere. I had quite a clientele until the janitor saw me and hauled me to the principal's office. And I learned the hard way that your business gets shut down if you are not doing things according to the rules, according to the laws, if you will. So I, at that point, decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. Now, the principal, he was really nice. All he did was confiscate all the inventory, put it in his file cabinet, and told me that if I would come back after school with a note or something from my mom, acknowledging what I did, that I could have my inventory back. I never went through that process because my mom wasn't aware of the whole thing. At the time. She wondered why I kept wanting to walk home from school instead of ride the bus, but that's because the store, right, my supplier, was on the way home. So I had to buy Boston baked beans and now and laters and lemon heads and all those things that it was hard to run with all those in your, because you shook and made a lot of noise. So you had to be kind of quiet, and it was an interesting business. But I learned a lot. But foremost, I learned, abide by the rules. Your integrity is not worth anything. My business got shut down. I felt bad. I honestly did. The principal did a good job of teaching me, don't do things that aren't right. And I learned very strongly, it's not worth it. I don't know how much money I made. I don't know where I spent it. I don't know anything. It doesn't matter now, does it? Now, that was a little candy business. All of you guys are here in school learning how to be business people. You're going to go out in the world, and I assume you're here because you want to be entrepreneurs. A lot of times, opportunity will present itself where the laws don't allow you to function. Don't go there. Don't cross the lines. Don't step over the boundaries where you should not go. It's not worth it. Your integrity is not worth whatever money you might make or whatever prestige you might gain from doing those things. I love the talk, and I can't remember the man who had it, but it was a general conference talk about, was it 2 hotel towels and a newspaper? Okay, you remember what he said when all these big businessmen right there in the airport, they're going along, the guy puts in 50 cents, opens up the newspaper machine, starts handing out newspapers to everybody. Do you remember what he said when the guy offered him a newspaper? I will keep my integrity for that 50 cents. And so he put 50 cents in the machine for his newspaper. And then the guy who was handing them out, next time they came to a newspaper machine, shoving quarters in, opening, closing it, to pay for them all. But I can tell you, your integrity is worth more than 50 cents. Your integrity is worth more than $50. Your integrity is worth more than $500. And your integrity better be worth more than $5 million. Because in the end, just like my candy business, it will all go away. Business is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful tool to teach us, to help us learn, to help us develop our talents, to provide for our families and the families of our employees. But it is not worth your integrity. Don't ever sell your integrity for any amount of money that you might make in business. That's something I learned early on at about 13 years old. And luckily, we have the repentance process, so I was able to hopefully at 13, I discount some of that to naivety. But anyway, so that's one thing that I've tried to espouse. And if you take anything away from this lecture or any others, please remember that. Do not sell yourself for any amount of money. But the problem with business is, and entrepreneurs, right, we train our minds. We look for business opportunities, don't we? We look for voids in the market. We look for a chance to make some money providing a need or filling a need that people have. But don't go there. Don't do it. It's not worth it. So anyway, that's one takeaway. All right, other businesses. When I was in college, started a business named Woody Enterprises. Had a few employees. We did tree trimming and pruning and stuff like that. Went pretty well. It was a good business. I didn't know anything about business at the time, realistically, so we didn't follow a lot of we didn't have our business license and a lot of those things and insurance and stuff. Luckily, no one fell out of a tree. No one died. We did some good business. A few of us were able to pay for some of our schooling through that. Helped out a lot. And then came out of college, and I had an offer to come work here at Linden Hitch. And I came into that, and I said, I'm already starving. I've looked at their books. They can't afford to pay me. They've been losing money for about 10 years. Why did I take it? Why would I take a job like that? I wanted to learn. Business is about learning. It's about growth. It's about improving yourself. It's about developing your talents. At least that's what I've found. And the more I approach business with that attitude, the better I do in business. When I say, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to make myself better and develop the talents that God's given me, that's when I do the best in business. When I back away from that and I start focusing a little too much, this is me personally, others are different than this, and I start focusing on wow, I'm making a lot of money, or whoa, look at me, look how good I am. Can you believe? Look what I did. Look at all those new customers I got. That's when I start to actually fail, or at least feel worse about what I'm doing. When I'm doing it more for learning and providing a good benefit to the customer, that's when I do better. So, anyway, that's a little bit about me. Any questions to that point?
You said they came to you, or you went to them?
They came to me. And I can give you a little bit of a reasoning for that. Actually, Progress is a new name for the company from when we bought it. It was Linden Hitch at the time. It actually started up in Salt Lake, the company did. And back in the 70s, there was a really big economic time. I think it was, oil prices and credit was really expensive. Sounds similar to today. But anyway, so in that period, they sold the company. And the first buyer basically ran the company. Talk about integrity. sold all the inventory, never did pay the original people who he bought the business from, got a lot of new inventory to build product, never paid the suppliers, and basically then walked away from the business. So he reaped a big reward. That's not the kind of harvest that I believe you should be being taught to do in your entrepreneurial ventures. That's not a harvest, that's robbery. So took it all, turned the company back to the original people. They said, hey, we now have a ruined business here. What do we do with it? And some people there in Linden bought the business at that time. In 1984, they bought it. And it had continued to lose money for the 10 years they owned it. So in 94, when I came out of college, they approached me, mostly because my father-in-law was one of the people who had invested in it originally. They had all had, written off the taxes, their original investment in it and stuff, and they all were entrepreneurial in other areas, and they'd come together for this venture, and it didn't work for them, so it was just kind of there. And so he approached me and said, hey, you want to try something? And so that's how I came into it. And that's why I approached you with hey, I can't take it any lower. They sold about 200 hitches in that first year. So that's not a high volume of product when you're trying to sell nationally, if you will, and stuff. So anyway, does that answer that? Okay. What I'd like to do is run through the products that we have, what we do a little bit, and kind of a little bit about manufacturing, and then we'll jump a little bit more into, I'm supposed to talk about kind of marketing and sales and how you do some of that, a little bit about kind of the organization of the business. But let's run through the products first just a little bit so you know what we are and what we do. We were introduced as having the Cadillac of products. Let me see if we can go. Okay, the products of Progress Manufacturing, the original equalizer sway control hitch. That is our flagship product. That is what we stand on. That's our main bread and butter, if you will. These other two are ventures we've entered into recently. The E2 is it's also a hitch, but it's a I don't want to say lower quality. It's still a good quality, but it's an imported product. So it's not one that we manufacture ourselves. We do all the quality checks and whatnot on it. And it doesn't have the same features as the equalizer. And then Fastway is a new brand, so we've chosen to brand these three different items. In our industry, nobody knows Progress Manufacturing. They don't have really much idea who we are. They know us as Equalizer for the most part. Who here has ever ridden or you shouldn't have ridden in a travel trailer? Whose family owns a travel trailer and they may have camped in a travel trailer before? Any of you? Not a lot. Okay. Shame on you, the rest of you. You need to go buy travel trailers and go camping. It's a lot of fun. That's our primary market, the travel trailer industry, the camping or that industry. When I tell people we make products for trailers and stuff, they immediately think of, hey, you're in a real classy industry, buddy. You're doing well. Okay. Now this is an upper end RV park, I must say. Especially if you notice right here. There's a lot of glass missing, but I think that's a greenhouse alongside this shipping container. And then see that shipping container there? See, if you take one of those shipping containers that comes across the ocean, they get worn out because of all the seawater and the salt, and they start rusting. Well, just tip it on its end, and you've got a high-rise travel trailer. Anyway, this is not necessarily the industry I'm in. I get a lot of emails from people, and they send me just weird pictures because that's the industry I'm in, and this is one of them. But anyway. So when I say we're the Cadillac of hitches, it doesn't mean that we're this kind of a Cadillac per se. I went through the EMBA program, as I mentioned. Does anybody have a class from Gary Rhodes? Does anybody know who Gary Rhodes is? Should I ask you what you think of Gary Rhodes? Is your major marketing? No? Entrepreneurship, okay. Gary Rhodes teaches marketing classes, is that correct? He taught us one. And he's pretty aggressive, and he taught us some really good things. And one of the projects we had in that class when I was doing that was we had to do surveys and categorize customers and their wants and whatnot. So my team in that class, we went out, we called a whole bunch of people out of our databases that I had at work and asked them what they wanted in a hitch. Why do you buy our hitch? He calls them your love group. So you go to the people who already own your product and you ask them, why did you buy my product? What made you think that it was worth putting your money on the line for? And then you go to your other groups that are your non-love group or your swing group, people who might buy your product, and you ask them similar questions, and you see where you line up and then you do a better job of marketing to your swing group, right? What your love group says, hey, we really like this about you, you go tell your swing group about it, and hopefully they become part of your love group. So we did that, and we came up with some things. In our market, and this is, the customers wanted 4 things. They wanted weight distribution, they wanted sway control, they wanted ease of use, and they wanted quality construction. Now, to me, they all deal with quality to a grand degree, don't they? If it's easy to use, if you provide what you're supposed to do, that's quality. But in our industry, they pulled quality out, right? We put the K in quality. It's easy. Everybody says, hey, we have the quality product. We do quality. In our instance, because with a trailer hitch, you have a travel trailer that probably weighs twice as much as your tow vehicle behind you, and you're going down the freeway at 60. You shouldn't be going more than 60, but some do. Miles per hour. Why is quality a little more critical in that instance than, say, in the majority of times when you say, oh, yeah, I like quality in my candy bar? Nobody dies if your candy bar fails, do they? Or very few do. Unless it's got salmonella, I guess. Maybe that was a bad example. Okay. Anyway, so quality really does mean something in our industry. It really is something that's critical to our customers. They cannot have this product fail. If the hitch fails, that can be catastrophic to them or someone else. So that's very important. So we set out to address these issues. And we said, well, okay, we're going to give weight distribution, sway control, ease of use, and quality construction. So let's talk about weight distribution. Can anybody here tell me what weight distribution is? Nobody? Go ahead.
Isn't that how it's distributed over the wheels and then going to the back of the truck?
Exactly.
So both on, like, to balance it out completely with the brakes and all of that too.
Okay, if you want a job, talk to me later. We've got some jobs in sales. That's exactly right. Weight distribution. When you have a truck and you take a heavy trailer and you put all that weight on the back of the back of the truck squats down and the front lifts up. It's just like you're teeter-tottering off that rear axle. What happens when the front of your tow vehicle doesn't have a lot of weight on those wheels? You're driving down the road like this, right? And if it's dark, everybody coming towards you is flashing their lights at you saying, stop brightening, you jerk. What are you doing? You're not brightening them. You're just front end of your car is way up in the air. You can't steer very well. If you put on your brakes, you don't have good grip and traction on the road. So it is an issue when you're towing heavy trailers. So our specialty is the heavier trailers. Let's just make that assumption right now. Our hitch actually has these little bars that stick back along the frame of the trailer, and we lift up onto brackets that are attached to the trailer. And what that does is it pushes the front of the trailer or the tow vehicle back down, gives you good contact with the road. It makes it a much more comfortable and safe driving experience. And that's critical, right? Now, so we didn't have a lot of people who had gone camping with a travel trailer. How many was it again who have actually driven or ridden in a truck towing a trailer? You have a few of you? Where do you typically go if you're towing a travel trailer on a trip? Where?
Dirt roads.
You go on dirt roads. What's your final destination? Why are you there? Why are you driving on the dirt roads? You're trying to get away from stress. You're trying to get away from your job, and you're trying to go somewhere to relax. If the beginning of your trip is a 3-hour drive that you think you might die on, how relaxed are you when you get there? You're not very relaxed. That's why people want weight distribution. They want to feel like, hey, I can drive my vehicle and I can be safe, and I don't have this floating up and down, and the front of my car is wandering all over the highway and I can't steer it. So that's why they wanted that. The next thing they wanted was sway control. Once again, deals with the same thing. You're going on a vacation. Let's not have the trailer wagging all over behind us. Why do you care about that? This person wanted better sway control than they got. Can you tell what it's a picture of? Once again, I got an email. Every time there's an accident, I get an email. This would be the A-frame of a travel trailer, but the trailer is obviously on its side. You're looking at the bottom of the trailer. This would be an SUV, it looks like it could be a truck, hanging off the side of a bridge by the trailer hitch. Luckily, that is not our trailer hitch. Just let's make that clear. That's not our trailer hitch. Okay? The problem is these people had the weight distribution aspects of it, but they needed the sway control features to make them safer on the road, to keep that trailer from wagging around. What happens is a large travel trailer, they have such a big, broad side that they get gusts of winds that push that trailer, and they want to wag around. Have you driven down the highway behind someone with a swaying trailer? I see a smile and a nod over here. How did you feel when you came up behind somebody like that? Yeah, you don't want to spend a lot of time next to them, do you? And you worry about them too. You worry about their safety. So we set out to produce and provide a product that had the weight distribution and it had sway control features as well. So we're trying to meet the needs of the consumer with our product. Now this PowerPoint, by the way, is one that our sales guys just put together. I went and grabbed it, so I notice here it says, less hassle and waste of time dealing with add-on sway systems. I doubt any of you know what an add-on sway system is, but for a lot of the weight distribution hitches on the market, the add-on products, that if you want sway, it's an add-on. You buy it extra and you add it to your hitch. And it's a big hassle. So what we did is we made our hitch, we integrated it all into one. So when you hook up the weight distribution, bam, you got the sway control with it. And how does that work? This is the equalizer hitch. This part would insert into the receiver on your tow vehicle. You've seen trucks with the little 2-inch opening on the back. They call that a receiver because it receives the hitch. So that part would be plugged into the hitch on the tow vehicle. These, though in our picture they're mysteriously floating in the air, in real life the travel trailer would go right in between that area right there, right here. And these stay bolted to the trailer. So when you unhook from the trailer, these stay on the trailer and this hitch is separate and can go with the tow vehicle or can be removed. So we integrated sway, their friction points. Basically, it's a linear friction point here where there's a tremendous pressure. There's about 1,000 pounds of pressure, downward pressure on there because you're using that to leverage the tow vehicle into that weight distribution. So you have about 1,000 pounds of pressure pushing those surfaces together. They resist movement. And that's happening in those two locations. And then here the hitch is designed such that it's a rotational friction system. So the spring bar resists side-to-side movement, which resists the trailer moving side-to-side. So we just kind of packaged it all into one. And that's kind of our competitive advantage. Our product meets a need that the customers had, giving them both those two things, weight distribution and sway control in one product, but it's easier to use than the others. So we end up with things like this, people writing us letters and saying, hey, with the equalizer, I actually handled much better, and now he's got a heavier trailer and he says it works better. Added bonus, the equalizer is easier to use than my previous hitch. An interesting thing, being the Cadillac of the industry, our product is made of higher grade steels. Because of the friction points we've put in it, it has to withstand a lot of pressure and a lot of tension, a lot of weight, and it has to hold up a lot. Our hitch costs more than the other hitches on the market. You can buy a standard weight distribution or whatever hitch for less than ours. But this person's saying, hey, you gave it to me at a fair price, even though it costs almost 50% more than the next cheaper thing he could have bought. That means you're meeting his need. That means that you caught it. If he's saying, hey, I just gave you $200 more than I would have had to spend on the next cheaper thing, but thanks for giving me a fair price. You know you've met his need then. The quality construction. One thing we've had to do, I wish all that $200 was profit, but it's not. We've had to buy higher grade steels. We've had to buy American steels because we know we get the same grade, the same quality, the same product every time. We know that we can get higher grade steels that we just can't get in China. So we've set ourselves up. It costs more to make this hitch. It costs a lot more to make it out of the higher quality materials. Chrome moly is just, it's a type of stainless steel. It's a mild stainless steel versus just a standard run-of-the-mill cheap steel. We use forgings instead of castings. We offer lifetime warranty, but we do it all. We make this product all here in the United States, in fact, right here in Provo. We have a lot of accessories that go with it, different sizes, depending on the truck or whatnot you have. You can do different things. Did my mic just go off? I can still hear myself. Oh, hey, I'm back. Ta-da. All right. Glad to be back. All right. Once again, just we get so many letters from people. It's kind of funny that you think, hey, you make trailer hitches, right? You saw up steel, you weld it together, you cut holes in it, and you sell it. Why are people so passionate about it? But it's interesting. People who really live the lifestyle of RVing, they love to camp. They love to get away. They love that. It's a way of life for them, and so they tend to write us letters all the time. So good things were said. Hook up and unhooking are easy and straightforward as advertised. The whole system works, if anything, better than advertised. Great work. Best bargain on the market and is superior to anything anywhere near its cost. When I started with this business, basically working to take it over, my father-in-law told me something, and I think this was pretty good advice. He says there's plenty of people who play at the bottom of the pool, and they all die. And I was like, what? Huh? Yeah, if I play at the bottom of the pool, I'll die. What do you mean? And he said, people will price their product as low as they can to penetrate a market. And then what do they find out? They drown. Because they're not producing enough money to sustain themselves. He says, if you have a product that you and anybody else can manufacture, and you're going to compete on price, you're going to drown. Because you aren't going to make enough money. Everybody else can meet your price. Why does anybody buy your product? We said, give yourself something that differentiates your product. It may cost you more to do it, but if you're differentiated, you can command a higher price. You can get the margin that you need to run your business, to pay your employees, to buy your product, keep your building in good order, and then you can provide your customers with a better product. And so he espoused that, and I think that was very wise advice. I can think of other businesses who do compete on price. Little Caesars, are they not a price company, right? They're out there, they're the cheapest pizza. But how do they do that? They have a competitive advantage. They can make their pizza cheaper than their competitors. If you can produce it cheaper, you can afford to sell it cheaper, and you can still make a reasonable margin. But if it costs Little Caesars the same amount to make a small pizza as it does Domino's to make a small pizza, and you go out and you compete only on price, all you're doing is leaving money on the table, and you're losing your ability to sustain your business. So I thought that was wise advice, and so we've tried to always maintain our products with a competitive advantage that allows us to sell at a reasonable margin, but it's still fair to the consumer and fair to us. So we don't price gouge, though. Okay, sorry about that. Now, we did notice the equalizer. It really is kind of the Cadillac. It's the most expensive hitch on the market. So we said there's room to come down into the middle of the pool, but not all the way to the bottom. So we come out with the E2 product. It's a different brand. We branded it differently because if you're Cadillac, you don't go out in the market and say, hey, we make the best car on the market, but we noticed a lot of you aren't buying it. So we don't have leather seats anymore, and we took out air conditioning, and we took out radios, but it's still a Cadillac. It's not a Cadillac anymore. The people who buy Cadillac buy it because it's luxury, right? So we said, we're not going to put out a product with less features for you as the consumer and call it an equalizer, so we called it the E2. It's a different brand. We sell it differently in the market. Because it has less sway control. It doesn't have the features here in the hitch head. It just has we've got the patents on the brackets and stuff like that. So therefore, we said we can leverage that intellectual property we have. So we put it out. Whoops, and it has that. I should have gone. Yeah, it has this different. It has the sway features back here, but not in the hitch head. And it's also imported, so we're not able to control the manufacturing process quite as well with it. Now we'll jump to the next one, Fastway. This is a new brand that we've come out with, and its target is fast, easy, and convenient. We're noticing in the RV industry, a lot of people entering that market are retired people who, one, they have a little more money and they want convenience, right? They want speed, convenience, and stuff. So we're trying to target those people with it. We've also designed the logo. This can be a travel trailer, but we can change that to a horse trailer. We can change it to a boat. We can change it to any number of, a flatbed trailer with a bobcat on it. So we can take this brand, because they're products that hopefully spread out over more trailer users in different markets or industries, and we can try and focus on them. So we set out, we've got about 6 products, and they're just patented. They're just about ready to come off the line. We have one that has already come off the line, so we'll talk a little bit about it. But it's kind of new. It's a little bit different method in our industry, and it's new. It's amazing. So once again, everybody sends me weird pictures, and so this is one that came through the email. They said, hey, you do travel trailers? Why don't we send you a picture of this? This is not our product, I'm sorry to say. It would be a good hitch, but I don't know that there's much market for it. We are a manufacturer. We make things out of steel. We bend it. We cut it. We drill holes in it. We weld it. So you can only guess. That's our core capability or core ability. So we're going to leverage that into helping us do more things. So you can guess Fastway products are going to be made out of steel. They're going to be bent, cut, welded, because that's what we know how to do. This product is a wheel chock. If you notice over here, this would be a wheel and another wheel. Travel trailers have 2 wheels. Typically, they're tandem, they call them. But if you've been in a trailer when you park it and you unhook it from your tow vehicle, the trailer wants to move. If you're on a hill or something, it wants to drive itself down the hill. So wheel chocks are very common to put in place to keep the trailer from moving. We're also finding, though, when people go camping in a travel trailer, if they use a brick or a piece of wood or a there's little plastic chocks they can buy, and if they use that here, the trailer still wiggles a lot when you're moving around inside the trailer. Everybody's asleep. You get up to go use the bathroom. Well, now everybody's awake because when you got out of bed, the trailer went like this. And so doing this chalk, it actually pushes hard out against both wheels and it secures the trailer much more. So now when you're camping and you want to get out of bed to do something, you don't wake everybody else up. Or when you're trying to have breakfast and everybody's sitting there with their orange juice in their cups and you're bringing food back and forth, their juice isn't spilling and stuff. So it keeps the trailer more secure and in place. Also, the lanyard here makes it so that this product, because we're saying there's a lot of older retirees, they don't want to get down on the ground to put a chalk in place or to remove it. This can all be done from the standing position. You hold the leash, if you will, you put it on the ground, kick it under the tires, step on it, it locks it in place. You just lay the handle against the tire. You can see how that one's leaning up against the tire. You come back later, you grab a hold of that, jerk it out, and the chalk's out of place and gone. So it's just a much easier to use product. So those are the products of progress. Any questions about the products or any of that?
Quality improves in China, how they make their steel in other places. What's your plan for beating that competition?
That's part of why we came out with the E2 products. We're getting our experience in importing and stuff, and we're watching the quality, and that's a great question. It doesn't have to be made in the U.S. to be of high quality, but we, right now, cannot get the metals and the materials from China or India, for that matter. I had a question in the last one about intellectual property, and somebody in China actually knocked off our hitch exactly. I mean, to look at it. Now, we started sending letters out and started doing the whole, we're going to defend ourselves in this case, but they were a Chinese company, so not a lot you can do besides stop them at the border. Their first container of product hit here. It looked just like ours. Some of our dealers called us up and said, hey, what's up with this? It's a lot cheaper. And a couple of them bought it, and they had a 100% failure rate. And so did a recall on all of them. We never heard anything more of it. So we know that they can't match the quality coming in from there. But when they can, we'll have to readdress that and go there. So we had a question over here somewhere.
I was going to say, how did you get to the point when you used the rope there, the wire that's connected to it? Did you first come out with that, or did you first come out with just the pieces that go in and then you had the rope? Or how did you discover that? We actually had a guy who came to us with that product already to that point, and he needed an outlet to sell it into the market. So he came up with that one, and he was a retiree. He was a retired engineer, and he said, hey, I love to go camping, but I have all these problems, and he saw the problem and came to it. But he didn't have the ability to manufacture it or sell it, so that's how that one came on. Okay. I don't want to take all your time, but just real quick, because we manufacture in the U.S., talk about marketing a little bit. When we started, we were small. We went direct to the consumer. We sold direct. If you own a trailer, we hunted you down via magazine ads and everything else, and we sold you a hitch. And then you never bought another hitch in your life because you had one and it was going to last you that long. So we said, hey, we got to find a way to get more leverage for our marketing. So we went to the RV dealerships. You may have seen them on I-15. You got like Stewart's RV. You got Miller's down in Spanish Fork. We went after the RV dealerships and started selling to them. Because then we had a repeat customer, right? A lot of RV dealerships don't want to buy product direct from the manufacturer because in our case, our hitch weighs 110 pounds a piece. If I need to ship you one hitch, that's a big UPS bill, and the cost of the product just went up. So then we sold direct to the bigger RV dealers, but then we stepped over to distributors. And they're warehouse distributors. They sell hundreds of products to every little RV dealership. So we started selling to the distributors, and then they would sell to the dealers. Now we've just introduced 2 middlemen, so our margins, of course, came down on the product, because when you're selling in bulk, you have to share the wealth, right? So if you're going to start up with a product, know the channels that it goes through. If you're going to sell a product, know, okay, I may start selling direct, but I know that if I'm going to go, my objective is to get into, Best Buy eventually with my product. Well, when you're selling direct, build that margin into it so when you go to Best Buy, the end price of your product stays the same and Best Buy can take their cut. Plan ahead. Learn enough about your market to do that with it. It worked out for us. When we signed up our distributors and we'd give them our dealers that we were currently selling to, typically we had to double the volume just to get to the same profitability. So you need to understand the market and consider those things. So. Technology, manufacturing, run through some of our equipment real quick. We're down here in Provo. Manufacturing is a pretty capital-intensive industry. You've got to buy a lot of equipment to make the product. It's not like somebody who just says, hey, I'm going to buy widgets, I'm going to put them in my warehouse, and I'm going to resell widgets. All they have to buy are widgets. If you're in manufacturing, I have to buy the machine to make the widgets, I have to buy the raw materials for the widgets, and then I have to put the labor into it to transform it from raw material into widgets. And I still have to inventory widgets. So your capital is much more intensive. You need a lot more money to do that. So some of these machines are things that we've had to buy or do, and you're always looking for a better way to make the widget. Do we have any manufacturing people in here, manufacturing engineers or engineers of any sort? A couple of you? Okay. Then you might appreciate some of these. These are just their saws. This just looks like, hey, it's a metal saw, but it's a computer-controlled metal saw. We can load up a bundle of steel into this saw, program into it what cuts we want made, and let it cut all night while nobody's in the facility. The next day we come in, we have a pile of cut parts. They're all ready to go. No labor input. So you're willing to invest into some of this equipment so that you can make the products without the labor. A simple drill press, but we changed it. Instead of having one drill bit on it, it now has 3. So you can drill 3 holes instead of 1 per pass. You just increase your productivity by 66%. Because every pass you get 3 holes instead of 1. Simple drill bending presses. They're all hydraulic presses. This particular one used to do 17-millimeter shells for the military back in World War II. And we've just kept it alive for all these years because we like it. We think it's pretty neat. And so, anyway. But he just bends pieces, bends parts similar to these. Vertical milling machine. This one is such that it's a $150,000 machine. You load up your parts on this, what they call a pallet, slide it into the machine. The machine starts working on that while you're removing the parts that have just been processed and putting new ones in here. You take that one out, put the other one in. So that way the machine's constantly running. You're getting that return on your investment. Robot welding machine. It does all the welds on the parts that you can see here in front of it. It's just a robot welder. Sorry, I had to take the picture with the door closed because if you open the door, the machine stops. So I can't show you what a robot welder looks like when it's welding because I can't even see it. I can see what it gives me after the fact. This is a simple drill press, but we've added drilling machines to the sides. So now instead of getting 1 hole drilled in this orientation, we put parts in there and we get 2 holes drilled from the sides as well. This was a 75% increase in productivity because we can now make 2 parts in 1 cycle versus a half of a part in 1 cycle. Tool boards, everybody gets to designate their own tools. Just flow racks so that you put product at the back end after it's painted, comes to the front, and that's where you box it from. So you're constantly rotating your inventory. Same thing, these are just flow racks and pallets of parts. So that's that. Any questions? We're about done with time, so I just want to see if you have questions. Go ahead.
With your milling machine, could you take a steel block and then cut out something for injection molding?
Yeah, the programming of it's kind of difficult to do that sort of thing. We don't have the program because we do the same part over and over and over again. Yeah. We're a little different than some of the companies that specialize in one-off parts. So, but that machine, it engraves the date into every part that it makes. So not only does it drill the holes and face things off, then it grabs a different tool and engraves the date into it.
What are the other components?
That's in what they told me I was supposed to do. Let's see if we can get them to show up. I kind of covered some of these, capital, financial, just that we're pretty capital intensive. The people, human resources, people want to know how many people we have employed. We had about 70 people employed down here in Provo. About half those are in operations and the other half are in sales, accounting, all that stuff. Organization, we're divided up into... We have an engineering sector, which does manufacturing as well as
mechanical engineering. We have a sales and marketing group and an accounting team. And then new products or kind of product management team.
What's your margin
On our equalizer, our gross margin, I'd rather not say. No, it's reasonable, but it's affected. Like this year, with the inflation that's taken place, the cost of our steel has gone up per hitch. We're spending $30 more just in steel versus last year, and it has about $100 worth of steel in it. And so what used to cost us, so that cut right into our margin. So our margin's constantly fluctuating.
How much did your margins go down when you went to distributors and to go to bulk sales? How much did your margins decrease?
50%. That's why we had to double when yeah. Now, with the biggest distributor we signed up, we actually tripled over a 2-year period. So we gained back all that we had plus that little bit. So that was the advantage. That's why we wanted to go that way. We said we'll never get the margin. We also were able to streamline our processes. We were processing so many more products that we could specialize and really, so our margins actually increased from what they were because of the efficiencies that we gained. So, any other questions? We're out of time, so nobody's going to ask any more questions, and that's fine with me.